In today's episode, we're looking at 7 people who were eaten alive inside their car, from Florida waters hiding prehistoric death to an Alaska photographer who couldn't escape territorial fury. But first, we start in Yellowstone, where a family man stepped outside his car, not knowing a 400-pound predator was watching nearby. It was May 15th, 2015, in Yellowstone National Park, Wyoming. Early morning mist clung to Lamar Valley's rolling hills as sunlight pierced the dense pine forest. The air carried crisp mountain scents, while elk calls echoed across vast meadows. This remote area had posted warnings about an aggressive female grizzly with 2 cubs frequenting the region, particularly near popular wildlife viewing spots. Derek Vance, a 34-year-old elementary school teacher from Denver, had meticulously planned this family vacation for months. Despite his cautious nature and extensive research on park safety protocols, Derek lacked real experience with large predators. His wife Sarah, a 32-year-old nurse, sat beside him as their children Emma, 8, and Jake, 6, pressed against car windows excitedly. The family arrived at the Lamar Valley pullout at exactly 7 a.m., hoping to spot wildlife during peak activity hours. Derek had read campground warnings about the protective mother bear, but underestimated the lightning-fast defensive instincts of grizzlies protecting young. The grizzly bear stands as North America's most formidable predator, with adult females weighing up to 400 pounds and reaching speeds of 35 miles per hour. Mother grizzlies with cubs exhibit heightened aggression, viewing any perceived threats as direct challenges to their offspring's survival. Their massive claws, measuring up to 4 inches long, deliver devastating wounds with a single swipe. At 7:15 a.m., a massive female grizzly emerged from the tree line approximately 40 yards away, 2 small cubs trailing closely behind. The family watched in awe through vehicle windows as bears foraged peacefully in the morning light. Emma, overwhelmed with excitement, accidentally dropped her stuffed animal outside while pointing at the cubs. Without hesitation, Derek opened the driver's door and stepped onto the gravel, bending to retrieve the toy from beside the vehicle. The sudden human movement triggered the mother's defensive instincts instantly. She raised her massive head, ears flattened against her skull, and launched into a protective charge. Her powerful legs propelled her 400-pound frame across the distance in just 6 seconds, covering ground with terrifying speed. Derek, crouched beside the car, reaching for the toy, had no time to react or retreat to safety. The grizzly's massive paw struck Derek across his chest and shoulder with devastating force. Her 4-inch claws tore through his jacket and clothing, creating 4 parallel gashes that penetrated deep into his chest cavity, severing major blood vessels and puncturing his right lung. The tremendous impact hurled him backward against the open car door. His head struck the metal frame with a sickening crack, fracturing his skull and causing severe traumatic brain injury. The mother bear immediately retreated toward her cubs after delivering the single defensive strike, typical of protective grizzly behavior. Derek collapsed onto gravel, massive amounts of blood pooling beneath his torn chest as breathing became labored and irregular. The combination of catastrophic blood loss from claw wounds and severe head trauma proved fatal within 2 minutes. Park rangers launched an immediate investigation, temporarily closing Lamar Valley to visitors. The grizzly family was monitored but not relocated, as wildlife officials determined the attack was purely defensive behavior. Derek's family received support from park services, while the local community mourned the beloved teacher who simply wanted to share nature's wonder with his children. Derek Vance's story showed how quickly a protective mother bear can strike when threatened. For Mila Torres, it wasn't a land predator, but an ancient hunter lurking in the Everglades that would prove equally deadly. It was July 15th, 2016, when the humid darkness of Everglades National Park concealed one of nature's most patient predators. The vast wetland stretched endlessly under a moonless sky, its maze of channels creating an ancient hunting ground. Spanish moss draped from cypress trees, while the air hung thick with moisture. Mila Torres, a 29-year-old construction worker from Miami, had spent years fishing Florida's freshwater lakes, but never ventured into the Everglades' treacherous depths. Beside her, Carlos Santos, a 31-year-old mechanic and longtime friend, checked their tackle box. Both had encountered small alligators in suburban canals, but neither grasped the sheer size of apex predators lurking in these primordial waters. The warning sign at the boat launch had been clear. Danger. Large alligators in deep water channels. Mila had laughed it off, emboldened by several beers and years of swimming in local waters. The main canal stretched before them, its depths concealing creatures unchanged for millions of years. American alligators are living dinosaurs, perfectly evolved ambush predators capable of explosive bursts reaching 25 miles per hour. Males can exceed 14 feet and weigh over 1,000 pounds, with bite forces measuring 2,980 pounds per square inch. Their hunting strategy relies on absolute stillness, remaining motionless for hours beneath the surface before striking with devastating precision. At 10 p.m. peak feeding time, Mila and Carlos positioned their small aluminum boat in the main canal. The water measured 8 feet deep, creating perfect ambush conditions. 15 feet below, an 11-foot male alligator had been motionless for over an hour, positioned beneath overhanging vegetation where shadows provided perfect camouflage. Mila stood quickly to net a struggling base, causing the boat to rock violently. Her expensive fishing rod slipped from the holder, splashing into the dark water. Without hesitation, despite Carlos's urgent warnings, Mila dove headfirst into the canal. The moment her body broke the surface, the alligator's prehistoric instincts triggered. Powerful tail strokes propelled the massive reptile upward with explosive force. As Mila surfaced 15 feet from the boat, gasping and reaching for her floating rod, the alligator's enormous head emerged silently behind her. Massive jaws, lined with 80 conical teeth, clamped down across Mila's torso with bone-crushing force. The initial bite fractured multiple ribs instantly, puncturing both lungs as razor-sharp teeth penetrated deep into her chest cavity. Her scream was cut short as blood filled her throat. The alligator immediately initiated its signature death roll, a violent spinning motion designed to disorient prey and cause massive internal trauma. For 8 terrifying seconds, Mila's body rotated through the dark water as the reptile's powerful muscles twisted with mechanical precision. Each rotation drove teeth deeper into her chest, while centrifugal force tore internal organs and shattered additional bones. Water rushed into her punctured lungs with each spin, drowning her from within as the alligator maintained its crushing grip. Her ribcage collapsed under the immense pressure, while torn arteries pumped blood into the surrounding water. The death roll continued until her body went completely limp, life extinguished within 90 seconds. The alligator held Mila's lifeless form underwater for several minutes. Following ancient instincts, Carlos could only watch in horror from the boat, unable to approach the massive predator. Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission investigators determined the attack occurred in prime alligator habitat during peak activity hours. Mila's family requested privacy, while authorities increased warning signage. Mila Torres's story was a devastating reminder of how ancient predators still rule America's waters. For Eli Mercer, it wasn't Florida's swamps that called, but South Africa's golden savannas, where a hungry lion waited for one fatal step outside safety. It was April 15, 2017, in the remote wilderness of Kruger National Park, South Africa. The golden savanna stretched endlessly under fading light, acacia trees casting long shadows across dusty terrain. The air hung thick with dry grass scent and distant water holes, while haunting hyena calls echoed from darkness beyond. Eli Mercer, a 26-year-old marketing coordinator from Boston, had dreamed of this moment his entire life. This was his first visit to Africa, a honeymoon safari with his husband, David, a 28-year-old software engineer. Both men were captivated by romantic notions of African wildlife, their expectations shaped by nature documentaries rather than harsh reality. Neither possessed experience with predator behavior or deadly hunting patterns governing this ancient landscape. Eli had insisted on an evening photography session, despite David's reluctance. Lodge staff had issued clear warnings about a young male lion recently expelled from his pride, desperately hunting alone in the area. Hunger made him unpredictable and dangerous, they explained, but Eli dismissed their concerns as overcautious tourist warnings. African lions are apex predators weighing up to 420 pounds, capable of reaching speeds of 50 miles per hour in short bursts. Their powerful jaws deliver crushing bites with 650 pounds of pressure per square inch. Young males expelled from birth prides face starvation and become increasingly desperate, often targeting easier prey than usual antelope and zebra. At 6:30 p.m., their rental vehicle stopped on a remote dirt road when Eli spotted movement in nearby bushes. Unknown to him, a 320-pound young male lion had been stalking Impala and lay concealed just 25 yards away. The lion's golden coat blended perfectly with dried grass, muscles coiled with predatory tension. Eli opened the car door and stepped out, camera raised toward what he believed was an antelope. He walked 8 feet from the vehicle, completely unaware of the deadly predator watching his every movement. The lion immediately recognized this isolated human as far easier prey than alert antelope. The attack came with terrifying speed. The lion exploded from concealment, covering 25 yards in 4 seconds of pure predatory power. His massive frame launched through the air in a devastating leap, landing squarely on Eli's back and driving him face first into hard ground. The lion's jaws clamped down on the back of Eli's neck with crushing force. Razor-sharp canine teeth, each over 2 inches long, penetrated deep into vertebrae and soft tissue. The bite severed Eli's spinal cord at the cervical level, while simultaneously rupturing major blood vessels, including the carotid artery and jugular vein. Eli's body went limp instantly as his spinal cord was destroyed, cutting all nerve signals below the injury point. Blood poured from massive wounds as his cardiovascular system rapidly failed. Within seconds, his brain was deprived of oxygen as blood pressure plummeted from severe hemorrhaging. The lion maintained his grip, shaking his head violently to ensure the kill. Eli lost consciousness within 15 seconds due to spinal trauma and catastrophic blood loss. His breathing stopped as his diaphragm became paralyzed and his heart ceased beating from shock and exsanguination. Death occurred within 60 seconds of the initial attack. The lion began dragging Eli's lifeless body toward thick bush cover as David frantically started the car engine and honked the horn repeatedly. Park rangers recovered Eli's remains the following morning after an extensive search. The investigation concluded that human error and failure to follow safety protocols directly caused the tragedy. Eli's family established a wildlife education fund in his memory, emphasizing the importance of respecting Africa's dangerous predators. Eli's story was a devastating reminder of how quickly predators strike. For Juno Blackwell, it wasn't the African savanna that posed the threat, but the familiar Montana wilderness where experience seemed like enough protection. It was August 15, 2014, when Juno Blackwell arrived at Glacier National Park's backcountry campsite, nestled deep within Montana's wilderness. The 31-year-old software developer from Seattle had driven 8 hours with her friend Steve Miller to reach this remote location during peak huckleberry season. Towering pines surrounded their designated camping area, while the sweet scent of ripening berries hung heavy in the mountain air. Despite being an experienced hiker, Juno had grown complacent about bear safety protocols over the years. The trail register at the entrance showed concerning entries from the previous week, multiple reports of bear break-ins and 1 camper injury. Steve had suggested using the provided bear boxes for food storage, but Juno dismissed his concerns, choosing instead to leave their snacks locked inside their rental car just 10 feet from their tent. The campsite sat in a natural bowl, surrounded by dense forest, creating an isolated pocket where sounds carried strangely and escape routes were limited. Recent drought conditions had reduced natural food sources, driving bears closer to human areas in search of easy meals. Black bears are North America's most common bear species, typically weighing between 125 to 250 pounds. These omnivores possess incredible strength, capable of breaking car windows and bending metal with ease. During late summer, bears enter hyperphagia, a feeding frenzy to build fat reserves for winter hibernation. Their sense of smell is 7 times stronger than a bloodhound's, allowing them to detect food from miles away. While generally avoiding humans, black bears become dangerous when defending food sources or feeling cornered. Male bears are particularly aggressive during this period, often traveling great distances to secure high-calorie food sources. Their powerful jaws can exert over 800 pounds of pressure per square inch, while their claws can grow up to 4 inches long. At 1 a.m., the sound of shattering glass jolted both campers awake. A 220-pound male black bear had successfully broken the passenger window and was methodically consuming their trail mix and energy bars. Juno grabbed her flashlight and approached the feeding bear directly, attempting to frighten it away from their vehicle. The bear rose onto its hind legs in a defensive posture, trapped between the human threat and the car. When Juno began throwing camping gear at the animal, it triggered an immediate defensive response. The bear's massive paw struck across Juno's chest with devastating force, 4-inch claws raking deep parallel wounds through her ribs and sternum. The impact sent her sprawling backward onto the rocky ground with bone-crushing force. As she collapsed and attempted to crawl backward, the bear's second strike caught her head with crushing impact. The blow fractured her skull above the left temple, causing immediate brain trauma and severe hemorrhaging. Blood pooled rapidly beneath her motionless form as the bear continued its assault for nearly 4 minutes, delivering additional strikes to her torso and limbs until Steve emerged with an air horn and pepper spray, finally driving the animal into the forest darkness. Park rangers launched an immediate investigation into the incident, reviewing campsite protocols and bear activity patterns. Juno's family released a statement emphasizing the importance of proper food storage in bear country. The attacking bear was never located despite extensive tracking efforts by wildlife officials. Local media coverage sparked renewed discussions about wilderness safety education and proper bear encounter protocols. Juno Blackwell's story was a tragic reminder of how quickly a bear defends its food when human arrogance replaces caution. For Kai Monroe, it wasn't land predators that posed the threat, but the Brisbane River's calm waters hiding something deadly beneath. It was February 15, 2018, when the Fitzroy River near Rockhampton, Queensland, claimed its most shocking victim in decades. The regional Queensland town sweltered under a relentless summer sun, temperatures soaring past 35 degrees Celsius. Recent flooding had transformed the normally placid waterway into a churning brown torrent, carrying debris and sediment from the hinterland toward the Coral Sea. Kai Monroe, a 24-year-old backpacker from Manchester, had been exploring Australia's east coast for 3 months with her boyfriend Jake Morrison. The 26-year-old from Brisbane possessed limited knowledge of regional Queensland's river systems, having grown up in the city far from these rural waterways. Their road trip had brought them to a riverside park outside Rockhampton, where towering eucalyptus trees provided sparse shade along the muddy banks. The couple had dismissed warnings about marine dangers, with Kai particularly skeptical about shark risks in freshwater. Local Rockhampton news broadcasts had reported multiple bull shark sightings following the recent floods, but the young travelers remained focused on escaping the oppressive heat. The swollen river beckoned invitingly, its murky surface concealing the predators that had followed the floodwaters upstream. Bull sharks represent one of nature's most adaptable apex predators, capable of surviving in both saltwater and freshwater environments. These stocky, aggressive hunters can grow up to 11 feet long and weigh over 500 pounds. Their unique physiology allows them to regulate salt levels in their blood, enabling extended freshwater excursions. During flood seasons, bull sharks migrate upstream to exploit new feeding opportunities, following fish populations displaced by rising waters. At 3 p.m., as the afternoon heat reached its peak, Kai ignored Jake's concerns about dangerous currents and waded into the chocolate-colored water. The flooding had created perfect hunting conditions for an 8-foot bull shark that had traveled 20 miles upriver. The predator's lateral line system detected vibrations from Kai's movement through the murky water, triggering its predatory instincts. The attack came without warning. The bull shark launched itself upward in an explosive strike, its powerful jaws clamping down on Kai's left thigh. The initial bite severed her femoral artery and crushed muscle tissue with 1,350 pounds of pressure per square inch. Kai's screams echoed across the water as the shark thrashed violently for 8 seconds, its serrated teeth tearing through flesh and bone. Blood poured from the massive wound as the shark released its grip, only to strike again as Kai desperately tried reaching shore. The second attack targeted her torso, the predator's jaws crushing ribs and puncturing vital organs. The shark's thrashing motion drove Kai underwater repeatedly, preventing her from maintaining consciousness. Jake frantically pulled Kai's limp body from the crimson-stained water, but arterial bleeding had already caused irreversible shock. Death occurred within 3 minutes of the initial attack. Her body drained of blood before emergency services could respond. The bull shark vanished into deeper water, leaving behind only churning red foam. Queensland authorities launched an immediate investigation, implementing temporary swimming bans along affected river sections. Kai's family expressed devastation at losing their daughter to an attack they never imagined possible in freshwater. The incident sparked renewed warnings about flood season dangers in regional Queensland waterways. Kai Munro's story was a tragic reminder of how bull sharks can strike when floodwaters blur the boundaries between safety and danger. For Rhea Dalton in South America, scientific curiosity led her one step too far. It was September 15, 2015, in the heart of Peru's Amazon rainforest near Manu National Park, where the dry season had reduced water levels and concentrated wildlife along the remaining river channels. The morning air hung thick with humidity as wildlife gathered around the Madre de Dios River tributaries, creating a natural amphitheater of predator and prey interactions. Dr. Rhea Dalton, a 38-year-old wildlife biologist from the University of California, had arrived 3 weeks earlier to conduct solo research on jaguar hunting patterns along these remote Amazonian waterways. As a jaguar behavior specialist with over a decade of fieldwork experience, Rhea had grown confident in her ability to navigate the dangerous territories of South America's apex predator. Her research focused specifically on jaguar-prey interactions at these isolated river systems, documenting how the big cats adapted their hunting strategies in the dense rainforest environment. The remote research station sat on elevated ground overlooking a bend in the Madre de Dios tributary that attracted everything from capybaras to caimans. Local indigenous guides had repeatedly warned Rhea about a particularly aggressive territorial male jaguar that had been killing livestock from nearby settlements. But her years without dangerous encounters had bred a dangerous overconfidence in her protocols. Jaguars are the third largest big cats in the world and the apex predators of South America, possessing the strongest bite force of any feline at over 1,500 pounds per square inch. Unlike other big cats that typically suffocate their prey, jaguars are capable of crushing skulls and piercing turtle shells with their powerful jaws. These solitary hunters are excellent swimmers and climbers, perfectly adapted to the Pantanal's diverse terrain of wetlands, forests, and grasslands. At 6 a.m. on that fateful morning, Rhea discovered a fresh capybara kill along the muddy riverbank. The carcass was still warm, blood pooling in the mud beneath the massive rodent's torn throat. Excited by the opportunity to document fresh feeding behavior and analyze bite patterns, Rhea approached the kill site on foot with her camera equipment, violating the fundamental rule of never approaching an active feeding territory. Hidden in dense rainforest vegetation just 30 feet away, a 180-pound male jaguar rested after his successful night hunt. The massive cat's spotted coat blended perfectly with the dappled shadows of the jungle undergrowth. When Rhea moved within 20 feet of his kill, the jaguar perceived a direct threat to his food source. The attack came without warning. In a single explosive leap, the jaguar launched himself from cover, landing squarely on Rhea's back with devastating force. His powerful jaws immediately targeted the back of her neck, the preferred killing method of his species. The crushing bite delivered 1,500 pounds per square inch of pressure, directly to her cervical vertebrae, instantly fracturing the C2 vertebra and severing her spinal cord. The massive canine teeth penetrated deep into the neck tissue, causing immediate paralysis and unconsciousness as the spinal cord transection damaged her brain stem. Death came within seconds from the catastrophic high spinal injury. The jaguar maintained his killing bite for 90 seconds, ensuring his perceived threat was eliminated before dragging Ria's lifeless body 200 yards away from his kill site. 6 hours later, when Ria failed to return for her scheduled radio check-in, her research team discovered her body in the dense undergrowth. Peruvian authorities and park officials launched a brief investigation, concluding that the attack was a defensive response to territorial intrusion. The University of California issued a statement emphasizing the inherent risks of solo wildlife research and implemented new safety protocols for future expeditions. Ria Dalton's story was a sobering reminder of how territorial jaguars can turn deadly when curiosity crosses into feeding grounds in the Amazon's remote wilderness. For Colt Maddox, it was Alaska's most powerful predator that would test his years of experience. It was September 15, 2013, when the morning mist hung thick over the remote salmon streams of Katmai National Park, Alaska. The air carried the sharp scent of spawning fish and wet earth as thousands of sockeye salmon fought their way upstream through the crystalline waters. Ancient spruce trees towered over the rocky banks, their shadows creating a natural cathedral where wildlife had gathered for millennia to feast during the annual salmon run. The temperature hovered just above freezing, and the rushing water created a constant symphony that masked the approach of danger. Colt Maddox, a 45-year-old wildlife photographer from Anchorage, had ventured deep into this wilderness sanctuary alone. With 15 years of bear photography experience behind him, Colt had grown increasingly bold in his pursuit of the perfect shot. His weathered hands gripped expensive camera equipment as he navigated the treacherous terrain, seeking angles that other photographers wouldn't dare attempt. The Park Service had issued stern warnings about food-aggressive bears this season, as a delayed salmon run had created intense competition among the massive coastal brown bears. But Colt dismissed such cautions, driven by his obsession with capturing nature's raw power through his lens. Brown bears, the apex predators of Alaska's coastal regions, can weigh up to 1,500 pounds and stand 9 feet tall on their hind legs. These magnificent creatures possess incredible strength, with jaw pressure exceeding 1,200 pounds per square inch and claws measuring up to 4 inches long. During salmon season, their behavior becomes intensely focused and territorial as they prepare for winter hibernation, consuming up to 90 pounds of fish daily. At precisely 7 a.m., Colt positioned his tripod just 20 feet downstream from a deep pool where a massive 900-pound male brown bear had been successfully fishing for days. The bear's dark brown fur glistened with morning dew as it stood motionless in the rushing water, waiting for the perfect moment to strike at passing salmon. Colt's equipment blocked the bear's established path to its most productive fishing spot, disrupting a routine the animal had maintained for nearly a week. The bear's ears flattened against its skull as it registered the human intrusion. Its massive head swung toward Colt, dark eyes fixed with predatory intensity. The animal's shoulders hunched as it displayed classic aggressive posturing, huffing loudly through flared nostrils. But Colt remained frozen behind his camera, unwilling to abandon his expensive gear despite the clear warning signs. The charge came without further warning. 900 pounds of muscle and bone exploded from the water with terrifying speed. The bear's massive right paw connected with devastating force across Colt's head and upper chest. The impact produced a sickening crack as his skull fractured along multiple lines, fragments of bone driving deep into brain tissue. Simultaneously, 3 ribs snapped like twigs, their jagged edges puncturing his left lung and severing major blood vessels. Colt collapsed instantly, blood streaming from his ears and mouth as his body convulsed briefly before going still. Massive internal hemorrhaging flooded his chest cavity, while traumatic brain injury shut down all vital functions. Death occurred within 30 seconds of the initial strike, his final breath escaping in a crimson mist. The bear, having eliminated the perceived threat to its food source, immediately returned to fishing as if nothing had occurred. Colt's body lay crumpled among the river stones, his camera still recording the rushing water and the bear's continued hunting. Park rangers discovered the scene during their evening patrol. An investigation confirmed the attack was defensive rather than predatory, with the bear protecting its established fishing territory. Colt's family released a statement acknowledging his passion for wildlife photography, while urging others to respect park safety guidelines and maintain proper distances from wild animals. If these stories shocked you, click the video on your screen right now to see even more deadly encounters with nature's most dangerous predators.